Welcome to this video about nonogram puzzles and how to solve them. Nonograms being one of my most favorite puzzles, you can somewhat compare them with paint by numbers or Japanese crosswords. The goal is to draw a picture using the numbers. So let me tell you something about the rules and then we'll go through the techniques on how to best solve the puzzle. The goal is to color the entire grid in black or white squares. If you think a square is not represented by a number, then you can put an X down, and that can really help you solve the puzzle as well. And of course, if you think that it actually represents one of the numbers, then you can just fill it in. Once you're done with the entire puzzle, the whole image should be visible. The numbers represent the length of black squares. For example, the first 5 would represent a line of 5, but of course you don't know that it's going to be on that location. These numbers are always in the correct order. So first there will be a 5, then a 3 and then another 3. Of course from the left side it will be left to right, and from the top side it will be top to bottom. Another important rule is there must always be at least one white tile in between each length of black squares. So it can never be that you have the 5 and then the 3 is just pasted directly afterwards. It will always be something like this or this. So to get started, we'll go through a certain amount of techniques that will help us get the picture showing. And the first technique will not always be applicable, but of course when it is, it's going to be easy, and that's fill in full rows. As you can see, the grid is 15 by 15. That means if you see a 15, that's a no-brainer of course. It's going to be, the entire row is going to be fitted out. And you can then cross that one off, you've done this number. So that's going to be easy. Now the second one is to start with the sides, because the sides will help you a lot to build your way out. One of the sides we're having is the 14, which will help us enormously get ourselves started. Again, it's possible you don't have a side, but then get as close as possible. And the next technique will help you actually fill in even if you don't have a side. Because the next technique is also the most important one, and that is to determine the overlap regions. So as you can see, the 14 means that there's going to be a length of 14 black squares from top to bottom. It can be either the first 14 squares or the last 14 squares. But in between there's a massive region that literally will be filled in any circumstance. That's the overlap region. You can fill in the overlap region right away. Whether you go from top to bottom, this region will always be filled in, or from bottom to top, this region will also always be filled in. Now, a better example is maybe if we go for the 12, because that's a smaller number. If we go 12 top to bottom, we'll reach the 12th row, of course. But if we go 12 from bottom to top, we'll reach the 4th row. So that means the 4th to the 12th row will be guaranteed to have black tiles. This technique is the most essential in solving these puzzles, and you need to understand why we do this. Then there is one more 14, and the other ones are a bit harder, so we're not going to do that right now. And with this we come to the fourth technique, which is draw from the sides. Because we have a line at the very first column, we know for a fact that all the numbers from that point originate. For example, the 2, the 5, the 4, the 3, the 4, and here we already have a 1, and the 5, 6, 5 will all be coming from that first tile. So let's fill those in right away. This already gives us a massive amount of tiles we have available. To make things more clear, I will mark the numbers we already completed with a grey background. Now with this development, we have actually 2 1s, which were completed right away. But thanks to our overlap region of the 12, we now also have the next phase, which is the 4 and the 3. So let's mark these as well. And then I want to introduce you to the next technique, and that is look for combined full lengths. As you know, the length of a row or a column is 15. For every second number in that row, so I don't mean the single number rows, which is the 14 and the 12 and the other 14 and the 15, but I mean the rows with at least 2 numbers. For every subsequent number, there will be a white spot. So for example, the 3 and the 11 make 14, but because there's 2 numbers, there's going to be at least 1 white spot, which means it's going to be 15 combined. With that knowledge, we can instantly fill in the 11. This helps us massively to proceed to the right side of the field. To help us do that even better, we're going to the 6th technique, and that is cross off empty tiles. And for that we're going to actually go to the last column right away, which is marked with 2 1s, which we already have. The remainder of that column can be marked with an X. There's no chance that there's ever going to be anything there. The second part of crossing off empty tiles is to place an X after every completed sequence. That means that every length of black squares we completed will always have a white tile at the end. The 7th technique is to exclude impossibilities. For example, we have a 1, a 3, a 1 and a 2. From that we already have the 1 and the 3. The next one will be a 1, but if I would place a 1 on the next line there will be a 2, so that's impossible. So we can surround these already with 2 X's because we know for a fact this is the one that is mentioned. Another good example of this is actually row 12 and 13. We know there's a 1, it can never be on the bottom line because then it would be a 2. So we can surround these entirely with X's already. And a bit further ahead as well. Now with just using the X's, we completed a row right away. We have a 4, then we have a 3 and 2 1s. Now for the next step we'll go back to technique 3, determine the overlap regions, and it's actually the 2 6s. If the 6s would start from the bottom, they would look like this. This is highly unlikely because there's a 4 and a 1 here. So we can assume that it's here, but we don't have to guess, so we don't have to do that. But we can take the overlap region of both possibilities and fill these in already. And I will actually put a technique rule there as well, to never guess. It's not necessary. This may not help us directly complete the 2 6s, but it will help build our way up from the lower rows. And we can see this right away with row 12. It ends with a 2, which can only be on one spot, and the rest is already filled in. And the row above it already filled in. And now the row above that is going to help us complete the 2 6s. The 1 we already have, so surround with X's. The 4 will be slotted in a 5 slot possibility. Which of the 1 we can exclude? We can do the overlap region, but we can see it much easier already if we look at the columns. Because there's 2 columns that are blatantly obvious already completed. So complete them with X's. Now there's only 4 tiles left, which we actually need. That not only completes the 4, but also the 2 6s. So we can surround those right away with X's as well. If we look back at the bottom row, we can see there's not much room left for 4 plus a white space plus 1. The one who's going to help us with this is actually row 7. In this row you can distinctly see that we need a 3 in the end. Since there was only one possibility, we can complete this one right away. Now there's only 5 tiles left for the 4s that we need, of which we can do 3 right away based on the determine overlap region technique. Which side we have to take is going to be determined by column 5. Which obviously states that we still need one more tile, and that's going to be a 2 at the end. That means we know for a fact that the corner is actually an X, or an empty tile. And this also means we can finally close one of our 14s at last. Well, scrap that, make that 2 14s. They are gone now for good. The 12 we actually completed automatically already, which is handy. Also row 7 was completed automatically. What we don't have is row 8 yet, but that can only fit in 2 possible slots. That also instantly completes column 12 and 13. And that also completes all the other rows because they were already filled in automatically. I hear you wonder, what did we just draw? Well, let me color it in for you and you will know. It is a Christmas tree near a window with a lantern on the table. I'm sorry, my drawing is not perfect, but I tried my best. I hope you learned a lot from this, and I hope you enjoy making your own nonograms. There are free apps out there you can download, or you can just go to the store and buy a book full of them, because they're really fun to do. Since it's December, I wish you all a very, very Merry Christmas, and have a lot of fun and a great time. Thank you for watching.